ED3 is not the best dungeon by any stretch of the imagination for farming out GP, but I know some of you out there still need to finish this collection log. So today I'm going to show you how I would be farming out this collection log if I had to go and complete it again. Getting right into it, this is the preset and worn equipment that I use.
What's that?
And we'll go ahead and start with the inventory since it's relatively bare bones. I have Super Guthix Brews and Blue Blubbers. Super Guthix Brews don't drain your stats, and Overload only refreshes every 15 seconds, so that is nice for not losing out on any damage. And Blue Blubbers don't drain any adrenaline, so they're definitely nice to use. Vuln Bomb, Overload, Adren Potion, they're all pretty self-explanatory. I bring Lucky Charms just to help out a little bit with GP and for the chance at a Shadowy Egg, which last I checked was like a 4-bill item. However, it's a 1 in 25,000 chance, so you probably won't see one when farming out the log, but you never know what might happen. The rune pouches are the bog standard setup for rune pouches. If you want to bring time runes and do some temporal gambling, go ahead, but personally, I don't really do that here. This T88 here is just a Coroming swap to buff up Greater Chain since we're going to be doing a lot of AoE damage. Power Burst of Acceleration is actually pretty useful in this dungeon. There's 2 locations that will be using it. Salve Amulet works on some of the trash mobs, and it works on the second boss, Terracat. We have a Gothic Staff EOF, we have an Iban Staff EOF, and we have an FSOA and the T95 dual wields. Now, both of these have a Shard of Genesis on them. You don't need it to farm out the dungeon. You might have to change your rotation slightly, but this will work perfectly fine for T95. And we're going to be using a Reaver's Ring and a Grim because I usually use Maniacal Aura here just to squash out any accuracy problems on the first boss, in which Reaver's Ring does have a hit chance reduction, but it's not an issue when you're running Maniacal. Most things are poisonable, so I run Cinderbanes over Wrist Wraps. Blast Diffusion Boots are best in slot for magic right now, but you don't need the enhanced ones. If you have the standard ones, that's perfectly fine. And here on the armor, I am using 3-piece Elite Tech. Elite Tech is very nice for doing damage outside of Sunshine, which is going to happen quite a bit because we're going to be doing a lot of threshing on trash mobs. However, I did some testing with both Sliske armor, the hybrid stuff that gives a bunch of extra crit chance, and this armor set. Whichever one you have, go ahead and bring that. If you have both of them and you want to use both of them, you could go ahead and do that, but I personally will take the little bit of extra damage and maybe a little bit less crit chance on the bosses with the Elite Tech, because Elite Tech doesn't degrade inside of Elite dungeons, which can be kind of helpful when you're farming out this dungeon and it doesn't produce the most GP per hour. I believe the average here is like 35 or maybe 40 mil an hour. But as you can see, this gear is very straightforward. There is nothing fancy here other than the Coroming swap, but that's pretty standard for Magic Camp these days. And if I load up the bank preset, these are the relics that I usually run inside of Elite dungeons. Now, yes, I'm using Luck of the Dwarves as a relic. That is because I am terrified of getting a doubled cheese and tomato bada. If you don't care about that, go ahead and just run like Font of Life with Zerk Fury, but Blessing of Het is kind of nice for when you're spam eating on Terracat if you need to, and COE is just standard best in slot for magic. And from the bank preset, I'll be using a Calg Demon with a bunch of scrolls, and I will use the Quarm and the Lantidime Incense Sticks, as well as drinking an Overload and a Weapon Poison triple plus. If you want to pop Powder of Penance, go ahead. I usually do, but if you don't and you just want to use a cheaper prayer source, go ahead. It's not going to be too much of an issue. And that's all there really is to the gear. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward, but it still can dish out quite a bit of damage. So let's go ahead and get into an example run. Alrighty, we got the preset loaded up and ready to go. Make sure our Grim is on. I'm just going to use Darkness for my aspect. If you want a temporal gamble, that's completely up to you. However, we're just going to get right into it. Not continue where we left off, hit normal mode, and we'll just get into the run. I like to surge dive over here. If you wait a couple extra tiles, you'll actually make it, but I didn't. And then I'll hit a corrupt on one of these guys and kind of G-chain and hit a combust, and whatever's left, I'll use a dragon breath on. Then I dive surge over this way. Ice auto these 3 scouts. Maybe just like G-chain wild. Sometimes I use Dedo with D-breath, sometimes I don't. It's just kind of improv. And I'll dive surge here, target this middle guy and hit an ice rack, G-chain into a wand spec. And then they all died pretty much. It's hard to tell which one is the refresh and which one isn't, so you can just kind of Target cycle, use a Dragon Breath or something like that there. Here you just have to kill these 2 mages or the zealots. And then what I like to do from here is click on this tile here and then Surge Dive on a nice diagonal. G-Chain, go for another wand spec. None of them refreshed, which is kind of annoying, but we don't need it anywhere else really until the boss. Because on these guys, I like to just hit a Corrupt. And I usually G-Chain a different one so that way I can get it off without, you know, my target dying, but it is what it is. We've attracted the mini boss, but if you want to kill it, go for it. I personally don't. And then we'll just go ahead and cross the mast. Go ahead and surge across. Let them all kind of group up, target one of the zombies. G-Chain, Combust. Maybe hit a Corrupt so it spreads around to whichever ones are alive. If you want to put on your Salve Amulet for those, go ahead. It's not really necessary. They all die pretty quickly. And then you'll have to kill the 2 zealots to open the gate. Now what I like to do here is stand in the center and then anticipate and then surge, target cycle, smoke cloud, sunshine. I'm just gonna do a standard sunshine, use a couple of basics, like a G-Conk into a D-Breath, auto Nami, hit our FSOA, swap over to Xang. Do a couple of basics, hit a auto Wild Magic into an Asphyx, G-Conk, and then go ahead and hit our Omni Power. Maybe into an Iban, auto Dragon Breath. And then here, I'll just go ahead and hit a another Iban into attendees. G-Conk into a wild, and that should be kill. I usually see a kill anywhere around 35 seconds or so. Put some bleeds on that guy while we're going. And then I like to surge, dive, and then use my Excel pot here. When you're using your Excel pot, be careful in that arch there. There is a little part that juts out from the east and is kind of annoying. So just be careful on that. Once you get around it a couple times, it's not too bad. And then we'll surge dive over here. Wait for these zombies to cluster up a little bit and then G-Chain one of them. I'm just going to use Combust here. Kind of let them all bleed out. And they all died. And I'll just like dive over, surge down, wait till I get around this little curve, and then jump down the cliff. And here what I'll do is like G-Chain and Wild Magic. Maybe hit a Combust on one of them. Dive over, surge, target this Necromancer here. Maybe use like an Asphyx or just a couple of basics, and then I'll Ice Auto these guys, and then G-Chain. Make sure I have the Salve on and hit Omni Power. And they didn't quite die. He's on 450 HP. Kind of the name of the game here. Something's always going to be left on like a couple hundred HP. Now I double surge here and go over to this Necromancer first. Use a couple of basics and maybe a Threshold. And then I dive over next to the artifact to click it. And then surge back over. Surge again. And then maybe use like an Asphyx or something on this guy with a D-Breath. He went down pretty quick. Hit this artifact. These 2 artifacts are what opens the gate. It's not killing any of the mobs, but you have to kill the Necromancers to access them. Dive over, protect range, hit Devotion and Surge. Spam Ice Auto on that Necromancer, G-Chain Omni. And maybe like a D-Breath or something. And kind of just run in after this and just maybe ice rack some of these. A lot of these targets are ice rackable, so go ahead and use it. It is pretty strong. Dive over, Ice Auto these guys with a G-Chain. We just use a couple bleeds and like a deep breath. And then what I like to do is click on this tile here and then surge dive over. That completely, it makes sure you don't aggro those 4 dudes over there. And I like to come over here and then hit a Nami into an FSOA spec as to prep for a Metamorph on Terraket. And I'll just kind of build a Dren here. Then surge dive. Make sure my amulet is on. Hit Metamorph, target cycle, Smoke Cloud, G-Conk. A couple bleeds. Maybe an Omni Power. into a wand spec, into attendees. That wasn't the best rotation. I would probably save Omni Power for later. Do something like 10Ds first and then go into Omni Power wand spec. For some reason, my brain just said press the big Omni button and watch damage happen. So it is what it is. Here, I'm just going to threshold. Maybe hit another G chain to a corrupt. Maybe a combust. And then I'll target the riff. Maybe with a corrupt and a magma tempest. I'm going to target the bloat here to get my staff spec off. Go back to targeting Terraket here and just try and build up. I'll make sure he's vulned. Go into another metamorph with an A pot. And then here I'm going to hit G chain into a wand spec. Make sure our Undead Slayer sigil is active. And then just do like Omni Tendies afterwards. That should be kill. Was a little on the slow side because I didn't quite do a good entry there. I usually get his HP a lot lower, but it is what it is. I'm just killing these because I'm trying to explain this before I go to the next part. And then what I'll do here, dive, surge, and surge again. G chain here, kind of standard practice. Go ahead and cut a combust and a corrupt. I really like using the bleeds. They're pretty strong here now, especially with the T95 dual wields getting a 30% damage increase. This guy, I'll probably just hit a Omni Power and like a Wild Magic. Then here is where I'll use my A pot again. Just kind of surge dive around. Get over here and kill this Necromancer. And then this one will walk over so you can kind of run back. Then you can dive over here and just kill this guy real quick. Use like a G staff on this guy, and I stand just to the west of him, and then you can just dive over to this portion, the abyss here, and dive in. Now we're in kind of the final section here of the dungeon run, so I just surge and surge again. And here I'll toss like a combust and then G chain for a wand spec. Did not get the refresh, which is kind of annoying because I believe that was max targets, but it is what it is. We're out here gambling, so I won't get into it. But here, just use some thresholds on these warped skeletons. Sometimes they really hurt, so you can pray overhead or pray deflect magic. Words are kind of difficult. If you want to use your salve amulet, go ahead. It's definitely worthwhile. I'll ice auto these guys. Then let the skeletons come over, go for a G chain and an Omni Power. This guy didn't get targeted, so I'll just start focusing him. And then this one's alive, and so is the Zealot here. Here is the, if I get a wand spec refresh up on those guys, then I will definitely use it again here to help get rid of these guys. It looks like the skeletons want to stand near the mini boss, so oh, it didn't aggro. If the warped skeletons here stand close to the mini boss, oh, that one did. Yeah, they'll aggro the mini boss, and it's kind of annoying because they will stun you. So just try and kill the skeletons as best you can. If you get stunned, maybe use freedom, pop an anticipate or something like that. And we kill off these two scouts, and then we'll go ahead and dive surge. I'd like to stand in the center here, and then just surge in, target cycle, smoke cloud, sunshine. Make sure we get our A pot. Auto Nami into an FSOA. Ray flick accordingly. Didn't quite get enough adren there, so I'll just basic into an auto wild magic, 2-hit asphyx. And I run to the north side here just to plant this smoke. Go for an Omni Power. Maybe auto into a Magma Tempest. And go for like a G-Conk into a Tendies. Wild Magic into an Asphyx. And then just use a basic stun on the black hole there. And that's phase. You can target cycle down here to the south pretty early on and hit this Sinister Fragment. But now we just go into the Roomba phase. And I just run around, thresh these, kind of just do whatever. Maybe build up some Insight Fear stacks. Toss out a couple more bleeds, build up a few more stacks there. And on this one, I'll actually go ahead and hit Natty. I am a little bit behind, so since I got the Relent proc there, I'll toss a Wild on that one. And then go over here and drop my Sunshine. Target that one, get a bleed. Maybe hit a natural or a Nami on this one. Basic FSOA spec. Then here, I'll just get built up Adren-wise. And then charge up a Detonate. Release with a Smoke Cloud into an Omni Power. A Wild Magic, which kind of dump damage here. Photonic Sanguinate. Hit a Tendies. Ivan Staff. And just play out the rest of your Sunshine accordingly. And then something you can do here is, since there's minions, is go ahead and hit G-Chain and go for a Wand Spec here. I don't think I had bleed stacks, so I didn't have a chance for a refresh, but it is what it is. And we're essentially just waiting here for our Sunshine to come back, so don't hit something like Omni Power, is what I was gonna try and say. Maybe toss a couple bleeds before running into the center. And I like to press Sunshine underneath and then A-Pot. G-Conk and just build up, just some normal Sunshine stuff. Auto Basic, Nami. Oh, I didn't click my A-Pot. That'd be important. And just kind of go from standard sun for standard sun stuff here. I like to fix under to see which direction the clouds are going to come from. And just DPS accordingly. Toss out an Omni Power, maybe a Tendies. This one should get blocked from this position, and it is. A little low on HP there, so we'll eat a bit. And just go for the Ivan and get the kill. Teleport out before this mini boss decides to stun lock us to death. Run over here, reload the preset, and rinse repeat. Now, if you want to make your banking a bit faster, what you could do is go into your handy dandy bank, grab another 1 dose of Weapon Poison Triple Plus, and save the preset like this. So that way, when you're coming back in, all you have to do is go over here, load last preset, and then click the Weapon Poison, click the Overload, run over to the altar, make sure the overload goes through. Then click here and then just surge dive over to the Adren Crystal. Grab your adrenaline back into the portal and keep spamming out runs. But that is about it as far as running ED3 with Magic Camp. It's pretty straightforward. I tried to keep this guide a little bit shorter. So if you have any questions about any parts of the run or some questions about the gear, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. But I'm going to call it here. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next guide. Peace.